Yeah, so let's touch base about what everybody's getting up in arms about our interview about fighter pay. I want people to understand. I feel that fighters deserve more pay, right? But at the end of the day, here's the thing: at any job in the world, if you work at McDonald's, if you're a secretary, if you're a salesman, if you're at any job, if you do not make that company money, you are not going to get paid more, right? Like if you're a salesman and they are paying, that's why most salesmen are
Get
based
paid on performance.
exactly, right? They get paid
Kind
on
of like a fighter.
yeah, exactly, right? So if you go and you sell $100,000 worth of shit, are you getting $100,000 worth of money? Like cash? No, you're getting maybe 50. You're getting maybe 40 grand of that. Maybe probably even like 20, right? Like 20% of a sale would go to the salesman, like
Not
maybe even
not not
10%.
e- not not even.
But
Not
but
even,
that's what
yeah.
I'm saying though. So you know what I mean? So there's other shit that's involved. So when you're a salesman, you sell 100 grand, say you get what, 5% of that?
Yeah, so yeah, maybe depending on what you're selling, yeah, you're probably in the range of 5%, yeah.
Yeah. So
5 grand.
5 grand. $5,000 off 100 grand. Those bosses are making maybe $40,000 off of your sale
You
that
know what?
you
I
made
gotta
of
freeze
5
you there
grand.
because that's a great point. Okay, so $5,000 for a salesman who maybe sells pharmaceutical stuff and off $100,000 gross. Here's what
Yep.
I'll tell you: at least 4 fighters on every UFC card, probably much more. At least 4. All do not bring the UFC $100,000 for getting in the cage that night. They do not bring the UFC $100,000
Exactly.
in revenue, in ticket sales, in pay-per-view buys because they're fighting on the card. Now, what they do get is more than $5,000, right? So if you're the pharmaceutical sales rep and you create 100 grand, you get 5 grand. If you're in the UFC and you don't create 100 grand, you get a lot more than 5 grand.
But see, that's all part of the risk, right? The UFC is taking that risk on bringing up a fighter that could turn into something great, but then also could turn into a fucking dud and just suck money out of them. That's why back in the day, there used to be like 2 fights. Like they would judge you on 2 fights. If you lost like one of your first 2 fights or so, you were cut. You were gone because they didn't want to invest any more money into you. When you go into a fight, like for instance, in my career, I'll speak on my career. My first probably 3 fights, I was a drain on the company, right? I still didn't bring in a revenue.
Yeah, you still
My fir
you still didn't net them a profit.
No, exactly.
Yes.
For probably my first 3 fights.
Sure.
3 or 4 fights.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
They had to invest. When you talk about investing into a fight, you're talking about flights, you're talking about hotels, you're talking about for them, for the coaches, you're talking about all the other costs involved and employees involved. You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars for one fighter in their first 3 or 4 fights.
Yep.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars that they invest into that fighter on a risk of them possibly, most likely, not turning into shit.
Correct.
Losing that money. Do you
Correct.
see me? And so how many times over and over again has that happened with them? That fighters just they're not cut out. They don't make it. Like I had what, 8 years in the sport? That's a long fucking career.
Sure.
In the UFC
In the
alone, that's
UFC.
a long
Correct.
in the
Correct.
UFC alone, I did fucking like 7, 8 years.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
That's a long fucking career. So I was able to make them money. I was able to make money. You know what I mean? It goes back and forth. But when you invest hundreds of thousands of dollars into something that ends up becoming a dud, and you're like, to even that out, you need to make money off of your other performers. You know what I mean? So again, when you're looking at it from a business standpoint,
Which none of the fans do because
nobody does
they
because
don't
they don't
want to
understand
all
it.
they want to do is compare it to things you cannot compare it to. You cannot compare it to the NFL, which has 16 games and there's a schedule. MLB, 162 games. Basketball,
Yeah.
was it 82? This is a whole different thing. You could be, there's no season. This is different. This is, you come in shape to perform on a night, and we look
Here's
at the numbers and we look at it's a
d-
different deal. And if you have to write the check, trust me, you're gonna sound a lot more like Dana than
oh yeah.
these guys do, you know?